The family Chantel star Pedro Jimeno used to have a good reputation, but the selfish way he treated Chantel Everett casts a long shadow. These days, Pedro's green card hunting ways have been exposed, and the universe isn't rewarding him. Yes, he's got a successful real estate career in the Peach State, Georgia, USA, but he's considered a man who stepped all over a woman to get his way. People remember what he did to Chantel, and they're unlikely to forgive him for freezing her out. When Pedro left, she was hopeless and depressed. Some marriages end and the breakups are understandable. People can drift apart. However, with Pedro and Chantel, it seemed more like he was implementing a long-term plan than hitting marital turbulence with his wife. He changed so suddenly, so profoundly, it seemed like the person that people saw on screen never existed at all. He was probably playing a role to get a green card. Once he was safe in America and unlikely to be deported if he left Chantel, he pulled the trigger. She had trusted Pedro and didn't see any of this coming. Everyone needs money, but some people understand that it's not the only important thing in life. However, Pedro doesn't seem to be one of those people. Probably due to his upbringing, his mother was consumed with greed while she raised him, always looking for a better lifestyle. Pedro is all about money. It didn't seem like his family lived that badly in the Dominican Republic. His mom and sister are still there, and they have good jobs. However, Lydia Morel, his evil mother, talked about taking money from her sugar daddy while he was married to another woman. Yes, his mother was a mistress who had children with another woman's partner. Right from day one, Pedro was raised in a life where morality wasn't exactly a high priority. While she surely had her reasons, and no one's walked a mile in Lydia's shoes, it's safe to say that she put herself first and put the man's rightful wife right out of her mind. Pedro's able to compartmentalize just the same way. Pedro was destined to live for himself too, and as seen in the TLC clip above, she was crushed when the fairy tale he pushed on her turned out to be as fragile and temporary as a sand castle. He seemed like a good mate for Chantel at first, but really he was a wolf in sheep's clothing, preying on his partner instead of loving her. While no one forced Chantel to date Pedro and then marry him, she now thinks Pedro and his family are a bunch of, and she said as much on screen. The act of taking from another person under the guise of caring about them is preying on them. Possibly, Pedro chose Chantel because she seemed lonely and gullible. It's quite common for con artists to look for victims that they perceive as weak people. Chantel's not really weak. Loving someone is not a crime. However, she was perhaps blind to an array of red flags that ended up being signposts to doom. Had she carefully considered the bad feelings, the cognitive dissonance, the jealousy, maybe she would have made different choices, but there's no unringing the bell. Pedro is money-oriented. He promotes himself on Instagram all the time. He wants to sell houses. His posts aren't usually personal or poignant. He's all business. He'll live out the American dream if it kills him. He's lowered himself to get where he is, and nothing will make him give up what he has. The issue is how he came by opportunities. That's what makes him seem like a predator. Of course, he denies using his ex. However, he may have subtly communicated that in the post above, writing, "Isn't that another way of saying that the end justifies the means?" Possibly, it's exactly the same mindset. Only Pedro knows for sure. Lately, Pedro's filming jokey videos and posting them to IG. He seems affable enough, a handsome guy who's lighthearted, a real estate agent who can be trusted. However, some fans aren't buying it. They roast him on the platform, calling him out for getting what he has by taking away Chantel's dreams and peace of mind. One critic read his caption and wrote, "It'll be hard for Pedro to make people believe he isn't all about number one. It could be impossible. If he wants to seem less selfish and mercenary, he should sincerely apologize to Chantel for hurting her." He just can't bring himself to admit that he engineered their problems. In fact, he appears to be willing to go to the most extreme lengths to cloak that. He doesn't want to own up to finding an American woman to use. It's difficult to believe that Pedro loved Chantel. If he had really cared, it would be comforting. But what are the odds? It's not impossible, but in light of all that's happened, it's highly unlikely. Before he left her, Pedro was very cruel. He called her lazy, emotionally kicking her when she was down. He had no empathy at all. He was cold to a creepy degree. What did she really do that was so bad? She hadn't changed at all. It was Pedro who was different. He seemed to stop pretending to be Prince Charming. When he stepped out of character, all hell broke loose. The two had bought a house together, and this seemed to tear them apart. Pedro wanted their starter home to be a showplace. Chantel was tired from her nursing job and didn't have tons of energy to put into the home's upkeep at night. However, all of these complaints about her housework seemed like excuses, like a script he'd cooked up to mask his real motivations. Pedro appeared to be acting, scrounging around for anything that might make him look more like a wronged husband and less like a green card hunter who was ready to fly solo. Again, only Pedro knows what was real. So the games go on, but really few people seem to believe he loved Chantel. To take the step of admitting that might win him some respect. At least it would be honest. However, it would inevitably trigger backlash, which won't help him to sell homes. Pedro appears to enjoy his newfound freedom, but he's always deflecting, just like an amusement park carny who uses sleight of hand to keep his tricks a secret from his marks. Above, Pedro puts the focus on his looks, drawing the eye away from his shoddiness. Pedro's an attractive man, and he may enjoy wrapping women around his little finger. With Chantel, he didn't have to work very hard. She was interested in him immediately. He was teaching her Spanish when she fell in love with him. One of his former friends says that he planned to use Chantel from the start, and that his family was in on it. However, Pedro denies this. When Chantel confronted him about that on-screen, he looked shocked. Whether he planned to hurt her or not, he seemed to get too close to other women. His MO was to form bonds with other females and then deny that those connections existed. This is gaslighting, a form of cunning that players really understand. The issue here is that Pedro was probably lying to Chantel all along. For example, when she questioned his friendship with Kareem Morla, he said there was nothing romantic there. Pedro has also been linked with his boss, Laura Delgado. A private investigator that Chantel Everett hired felt that this might be an example of infidelity. It's not impossible that Pedro had a lot of affairs, or maybe he had none, but it seems like there were issues with other women. It can't really be proved. Chantel tried to believe in Pedro, and look what happened to her. Of course, she now realizes that he was never trustworthy. Pedro wrecked Chantel's life, leaving her dazed and miserable. She planned to have kids with this man. Before he left her, he seemed to feel more passion for his lawn tools and gaming chair than he did for his beautiful wife. Chantel is a glamour girl. It's not like she let herself go. However, he didn't appear to see the beauty in her. After Pedro started working late and hanging out with his coworkers instead of her, he treated her like she was the Hunchback of Notre Dame or the Phantom of the Opera. Meanwhile, he lavished love on his comfy gaming chair. That piece of furniture made it possible for him to enjoy marathon gaming sessions without the usual lower back pain. That chair meant the world to him, functioning as a symbol of his twisted values. Sometimes he'd lash out at Chantel while sitting comfortably in that chair. Now his favorite gaming accessory is gone, sold by an angry former mother-in-law with a wicked sense of humor, and good riddance. Pedro may not have had a lot of things when he was growing up. Maybe he dreamed of owning the best of everything. However, in the pursuit of gaming chairs, leaf blowers, and the like, Pedro forgot that people, who are flesh and blood, are worth more than things. Hopefully, divorce will soften him, bringing out a less superficial side. Pedro may not be able to handle the demands of a mature relationship. Set in his ways, he may retreat into passive-aggressive behavior, seemingly afraid to really be himself. He got used to playing the good guy. That's the role he prefers. However, it might be more sincere to lean into the villain role a bit. Clearly, Pedro's no angel. The more he pretends to be selfless, the less convincing it is. In fact, Pedro's commitment to playing a part, in romance and online, may be his downfall. People have seen a lot from Pedro at this point, and they know better. They would perhaps enjoy him more if he brought a touch of honesty into his interactions. As it stands, the Family Chantel star seems to be a person who will do almost anything to get what he wants. What he won't do